Another live sales chat in just a moment. So if you just bear with us, we'll be starting our sales chat very, very shortly. Okay, we're just waiting to come to the top of the hour and then we will be ready to go. Okay, fantastic. We are live on YouTube. So let's get straight into it. And I would like to welcome today our guest, Kim, who's up in Toronto, Canada. How are you doing, Kim?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great too, thank you. And Martha Neumeister, who is in Vienna, Austria. How are you doing,
Hi
Martha?
guys, thanks, I'm fine.
Yeah, so those of you who haven't been on a sales chats before, this is a fast-paced 30 minutes. And today we're going to discuss the difference between sales professionals who perform extraordinarily and those who don't. And we want you to join in too on the Twitter chat, hashtag sales chats, hashtag sales chats. Martha is running the Twitter chat, and if there's any questions or comments or insights, she will feed them over to us, and we will we will talk about them on the stream. So Kim is the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching and JournalEngine software. She's an author, speaker, entrepreneur, and coach. Okay, so let's get straight into it, Kim. Let's talk about the difference between those who perform extraordinarily and those who don't, because sometimes I've found in the past that there's a lot of great top performing salespeople, but when you ask them what they do to be so good, they can't really tell you. It's like they're highly competent, but they can't tell you. So it often takes somebody from the outside to be able to identify and codify the behaviors that extraordinary or high performing salespeople exhibit. What do you
Well,
think?
it's interesting. Just the way you ask the question is fascinating for me because right off the top, you're asking, what do they do that's different? And I will say to you that what they do that's different is not the primary question or the thing that we need to really investigate or analyze. And what I will say to you is that they think radically different from other people. And so the question is, how do they think and how does their thinking impact what they do? So that's the starting point.
Yeah, it's great. No, that was great. I totally agree. It's so important is the approach and the mindset. So what are some of the mindset or thinking or attitude qualities that extraordinary salespeople have?
Well, let's start with this. When we look at people who are at the top of their game in the sales world, what we see is that these individuals have a very, very high degree of emotional resilience. And what that means is that they handle the blows much better than other people. And so let's really talk about emotional resilience for a brief moment. Emotional resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity with speed and agility. And not only that, leverage the adversity somehow. So when we look at top sales professionals, it's not that they never get rejected. It's not that they never
Hmm.
hear a no. It's not that they never fail. They do. They just don't focus on the failure. They get up quickly and they move to the next thing, right? So the word next is very important to these people. They just don't sit in the muck very long. They don't have time for that. They go to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And the other thing is that they set themselves up so that failure is part of the experience, right? So they expect to lose sometimes, and that's just part of the game. It doesn't mean anything about them. It doesn't define them. It doesn't suggest that they are horrible, terrible, and awful at their craft, right? So it's the way that they think about sales that's very important, and that's the huge distinction between them and other salespeople.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's a fantastically insightful. I like that thing. I like what you just said about the next, the power of next. Like, what am I going to do next? It could be, okay, this isn't working. They don't want to buy from me. Fine, I move on to my next opportunity or whatever. But the idea of resilience is very powerful, because I think that's been tested a lot. I mean, it's been tested severely over the last couple of years, obviously. Um, and I guess another part of extraordinary salespeople is the resilience, but also the adaptability.
That's exactly right. Adaptability. So what are they adapting to? They're able to take what they receive and not experience it as a burn or a beating on the
Hmm.
head, right? What they experience is information that allows them to prepare themselves better next time, that allows them to maybe target a different market next time, that allows them to move along. And so the information that they gather from a negative experience or a rejection or a no is valuable as opposed to a knockdown. And so they just think about things differently. I'd love to share with you a story. I mean, this story is one that I heard many years ago, but it left an imprint on me. And it was told by someone in the real estate industry. And so he was calling, people who had
Hmm.
their homes for sale. They're called FSBOs, for sale by owner.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
so he would call them up and he would, try to pitch his deal. And if they would say no, he'd say, thanks. I just earned $5. And so every single time he picked up the phone and they'd say no, he'd say $5, $5, $5, $5, right? And every time he hung up. And sometimes the people would say, what do you mean you just earned $5? And he would explain that every single call that I make, eventually one of them will say a yes, and I just need to make X number of calls to make my commission. And so you're
Hmm.
contributing to my commission. And so that thinking was, I got to get the job done. I got to do the thing, right? I got to make the calls. I got to reach a certain number of people. And it doesn't matter if you say yes or no, I will hit a yes, and a no just gets me closer to the next yes. And so that $5, $5 attitude was just like, hey, this is just part of the process. It's the stuff that I need to get done in order to hit the one that's going to be more open and more receptive to the conversation. And so, that's a very different approach. It for him, it was, I'm winning regardless of what your response is, right? So
Hmm.
I'm winning by picking up the phone. I'm winning by making the call. I'm winning by making contact. Whether you say yes or no has no relevance.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic story. That really does illustrate a different mindset, as opposed to going, "Ugh, another rejection, another rejection,"
Right.
which obviously makes it hard for you to continue. One of the things, I mean, there, as we said about the resilience, I mean that's important as well, and the adaptability. And what you just outlined there is also the realism and the expectation and understanding the business that you're in, and understanding what it takes to be successful. And I think that's maybe sometimes with newer salespeople, or even people who've been a while, that they don't really know what success looks like.
Well, and to be honest, like for me, part of the game is not only resilience, picking yourself up and moving along from the rejection. uh, You got to decide when to be persistent and when to move along,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes the no means no, not now, or no, not
Yeah.
yet. It doesn't mean no forever. And so you have
Hmm.
to be able to distinguish between a no, forget it, this is a waste of my time, and a no, try again in a bit, right?
Yeah.
So that's very important. I love stories, so I'm going to share with you one more story because
Excellent.
this one left a big mark on me over the years. So years ago, I used to sell software. It was simulation based software. So we were building assessments, and the purpose of those assessments was to help companies make better hiring decisions. One of the industries we were working with was in the real estate industry, and it was my first trade show. We went there, we had a booth, and on everybody's name tag, we could see who they were and what company they were with and how important they were. Well, this one woman walks by, and she was the president of her company, and clearly she was an important person. We spoke, we hit it off, we really connected. She was clearly interested in what we were offering. And so, like any good salesperson, I followed up. And I kept following up. And finally she said, "Will you stop calling me? You're the most annoying salesperson I've ever met." And I was like horrified, right? Like I
Oh,
was hurt to the core. I'm like, oh my God, that's not, certainly not what what my intention is. I really thought that you were interested, and she said, "Please stop calling me." And honestly, I was just devastated. I could feel the shame rising to my face, that feeling when, you've
yeah.
done the opposite of what you wanted to do. But a month later, I ended up selling to her competitor, and I sent her the press release that said, "Hey, by the way, your competitor just purchased this product." And then I sent her another article that I wrote that was published in a magazine in the industry, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. And slowly, I wormed my way back in. And eventually, she ended up purchasing our product. A year after that event, where I saw her at the trade show, she was there again, and she was walking with somebody else, another significant figure in the real estate industry. And I walked by, and I knew who he was, and he knew who I was, but she didn't know that I knew him. And so I
Right.
stopped and I said, "Hello." And she turned to this gentleman. She said, "Do you know who this is? This is Kim Ades, the most persistent salesperson in the entire real estate industry." And so I went from the most annoying to the most persistent. And so that's part of the process too, is you have to decide when to call it a day and when to keep trying, when to, there's an expression, if you can't get in through the door, climb in through the window. You have
Yeah.
to decide whether that window is too high and if you're going to fall off, or if it's worth the attempt. And so that's part of the process.
Yeah, no, that's an awesome story, and I mean, there's professional persistence, and and what you did then when you sold to the competitor and stuff is that's an elegant follow up. That's what I always think. It's an elegant, in some ways, it's elegant, rather than, some of the ones where you get to the bad. We can talk about bad habits in a moment, but I mean, it's one of the things, when people are persistent, but there's no it's just persistency for persistency's sake. There's
Yeah,
nothing of value during
right.
that process. I feel, Kim, as well, and tell me if you agree or not. That one of the things that I've noticed about the top salespeople that I've ever worked with is that they pay attention to the basics and the fundamentals. And this is something that we all, as human beings, when we start to do something over a period of time, we get good at, we think we get good at it or experience it. We start to develop bad habits. We start to ignore the basics and the fundamentals, and it always comes back to bite us.
Yes. And so, yeah, I completely agree with you. When we look at the most extraordinary salespeople, they have systems in place, and they do those systems religiously, come hell or high water, right? Like they
Mhm.
just do what they need to do, regardless of outcome. They just keep doing what they know will work over time. And so that might mean following up. That might mean keeping effective track of who you're talking to and what the last conversation was about. It might mean asking for referrals. It might mean making the sale, but not just making the sale. It might mean making the effort to check in on the client afterwards to make sure that they're happy. And just to connect, not necessarily because you have to sell anything more, but just to build the relationship. And so all those pieces matter. And I know, one of the things that you're putting out to the world is a CRM. Well, CRM keeps you organized. The CRM
Mhm.
keeps your systems in place and allows you to execute with greater ease. And so I think, those people who have those systems, those people who rely on CRM, the people who come in the morning and they already have their list of people that they have to follow up with, it makes life a lot easier
Mhm.
rather than going, okay, well, like, where do I turn? Who can I call? What's next for me? And there's this blurriness for them. So amazing salespeople don't have blurriness. They know what they're supposed to do day in and day out. And I will say to you that the people who struggle in sales don't know what they're supposed to do day in and day out. They're shooting in a
Yeah.
dark room.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Actually, we have a question. Somebody asked, what is the best way to change your mindset and get it headed in the right direction?
So one of the things that we do, from a coaching standpoint, is that we look at how top performers think and how their thinking impacts their outcomes, their results. And what I will say is that most people have a set of beliefs that interfere with their goals or their desires. And so what I always want to do is help people identify those beliefs that are standing in the way of their performance or the outcomes that they're looking to achieve, and examine those beliefs and decide whether or not those beliefs are worth keeping or worth trading in for better beliefs. And so a belief might be, hey, when I bother someone, it feels bad to me, or I believe that a salesperson doesn't have as much respect as, let's say, a CEO, or I believe that I need to grovel for the sale, or I believe that I just get lucky when I make a sale. Whatever those beliefs are, those beliefs play an inherent role in how you behave. It plays an inherent role in what you do. So to answer the question, my favorite thing is to ask clients to journal in an online journal. And so if you don't have access to an online journal, my recommendation is literally grab a piece of paper and a pen and ask yourself a question. What do I believe about my role as a salesperson, about my capacity, my skills, etc.? And write down all the beliefs. Write down the beliefs you have about yourself, write down the beliefs you have about your clients, about your ability to close a sale, about your ability to sustain sales over a period of time, your ability to build a pipeline, all of those things. Write it down, because what you will see in that list of beliefs that you have is a lot of them, I hope I can say this, a lot of your beliefs are bullshit, and that's what's getting in your way. And so those are the things that need to be addressed before you change your systems. So first your thoughts, then your systems.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think that that's a fantastic piece of advice about writing down your beliefs, because I don't think, I mean, we don't often sit around thinking about, oh, exactly what do I believe in and what do I believe about myself. So it's a great exercise, because a lot of this stuff, I mean, as you know, it can come from anywhere, can come from early in your childhood or whatever, all these kind of crazy beliefs that you think, well, that can't impact how I am today, but it can if you don't identify them and identify patterns and identify why you believe certain things about yourself. You're never going to get the opportunity to excel.
Even something as simple as, what does it mean when someone doesn't buy? What does it mean about them? What does it mean about me? What does it mean about my future? What does it mean when someone says no? And when you unearth all of that, you'll see that a lot of the ways that you think are literally malaligned or heading in the opposite direction of what it is that you truly want. So in so many ways, we serve to slow ourselves down. We impede our own progress, and we're not even aware of it. It's unconscious.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. It is unconscious. And that's, and it's very liberating when you go through an exercise like that, because as you said, I mean, what they call fear, false evidence appearing real. And I think that's a lot of the time is we feed ourselves with a lot of false evidence, and we draw conclusions, and we're fantastic as humans at filling in the gaps, but often filling them in a negative way, because I mean we're predisposed to, I think there's Psychology Today said something like 70% of your daily self-talk is negative.
Yeah, I mean, I have this other great example, if you're willing to hear one more
Please.
story.
No, hey, bring them on.
So when we coach people, we ask them to journal in an online journal, but every week we give them a journaling question or a prompt. At around week 8, we give them one particular journaling exercise. And the journal exercise sounds like this. Pick anyone in your world that you want to have a conversation with. It could be someone who has passed away, it could be someone alive, someone famous, someone you love to meet one day, someone you got into a fight with. It doesn't really matter. Pick someone and write a conversation between yourself and that person. And the only caveat is that it must be an ideal conversation. So this was many years ago. This woman decided, and she was a VP of sales for an organization, and she decided that she would write a conversation between her and the Obama administration, because what she wanted more than anything was to be Secretary of State. And so in her conversation, she decided to make it the job interview. So they received her resume, They called her in for the interview. They said, my goodness, your resume looks amazing, but tell us in your own words what qualifies you for the position. And remember, this is a journal. She wrote a journaling conversation. And so in her journal, she wrote up paragraphs and paragraphs about her qualifications. She explained why she was the best candidate. She explained why her background, her education, her upbringing, her culture, would be a good fit. She wrote a 10-point plan about all the things she would do in the role. It was amazing. And in her dialogue, in her conversation, they said, my God, you're amazing. You're hands down our best candidate. And as soon as we've interviewed all the candidates, we'll get back to you. And at the bottom of her journal, she wrote me a note. She said, how's that for dreaming big? So I'm going to ask you, John, is that dreaming big?
It certainly is. I mean, it certainly is. It's setting a goal and really going after it. But the point is, like, it doesn't matter how big the goal or how audacious the goal is. You have to take the steps to get there.
Well, yes, but in her fictitious conversation, she never gave herself the job.
Oh, yeah, good point. Good point.
Right?
Good point. She applied for it.
She applied for it. She gave us all the proof, right? She built up a case, but she didn't close the deal. And what we discovered was that when we looked at her sales performance, she also wasn't closing deals. She was waiting for her prospects to close it for her. She was waiting for other people to give her a yes instead of asking for the yes. And what we noticed why?
That's a great point. Sorry, just so I underline.
Right? Why? Because it's not polite to ask for the sale. It's not polite to close the deal. It's a little aggressive. It's a little over assertive. And that felt bad for her. So look at the connection, right? The way she felt determined how she played things out. So we discovered she had a lot of loose ends. She was leaving a lot on the table. A lot of things were left open because she wasn't closing things. And so we do that, right? We have all these great opportunities, but then what? We don't always tie up that opportunity. We don't always bring it to a yes or a no. We leave it in this lingering space.
Yeah, no, that's very true, and it is, and that is a not untypical thing for people to struggle with. But sometimes if you flip that around though and start looking at the person on the other side, right, or the people on the other side, and if you start to understand what's what they've invested in, what's invested personally, what the impact is going to be on them, I think that's where sometimes you can avoid some of these issues, is that if you understand, if you stop looking at yourself and start understanding the other people a bit better, then you realize that, hey, maybe I'm nervous about asking for the deal, but hey, they're also nervous themselves because this is a big thing that they're getting involved in. So I need to focus on assuaging their fears. And if you focus on somebody else, it tends to take away the fears that you have yourself.
And I will tell you something. I mean, it's been my experience that I've had many conversations with salespeople who don't seem like they want my business, right? Because they don't ask for the sale. And so when that happens, I walk away and I don't have the same level of excitement or motivation or engagement. I don't want to say yes when I don't feel that they really want to work with me or they really want my business.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point. I think it's right up there with extraordinary salespeople are excited and invested in what they're selling, right? And really, and you can feel it from them. Other less successful ones, to your point, you can feel that they've almost resigned themselves to you saying no before you've even started the conversation, and that comes across. I mean, these things are very much projected.
100%. You can tell when someone's passionate about what it is that they're selling, that they don't even feel like it's a sale, right? It's just like, hey, I can't wait to talk to you about what we do or what we have to offer, because we know it's gonna, make your life that much better.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, it's regardless of whether you are in the most complex, like B2B sale up there, or you're like I had a month or two ago, I had to get some HVAC systems just replaced, and I called a couple of different companies, and you get the usual, But one guy from one company came out, and my goodness, this guy loved HVAC, loved it.
Yeah.
And love to tell you about it, love to talk about it, love to tell you here, this system, yeah, it's a little more expensive. Actually, it doesn't really do much extra. There's really no point in you paying more for that unless you really want this extra feature, whatever, which you don't need. But the point is, I started to get excited about it.
Right.
You know, and let's face it, like replacing HVAC's not that exciting really. But then I started to get exciting and actually started going out and looking at the systems and going, oh, this is all because of his enthusiasm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best when someone says, wow, you're really passionate about what you do. Yeah, I'm passionate about it because it's like inside of my pore, right? It's inside my pores. It's inside my soul. It's easy for me to talk about it.
Yeah. And the point is, like, I mean, if you, here's, you know, most people would say, well, HVAC, you know, that's not very interesting, but he made it interesting. So it did really, there's no excuse if you're sitting out there going, yeah, well, it's easy for somebody to be passionate about this, but here's what I sell. And you go, well, figure out what's great about it or go find another job, but figure out what's great about it.
And I also really feel like life is not that long in the grand scheme of things. And if you're spending your days selling something that you're not resonating with, that you're not connecting with, then it is a good idea to search for something better.
No, absolutely. So Kim, what last piece of advice would you give to salespeople? What are a couple maybe of bad habits or good habits, because I always like to balance it, that people could focus on?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of focusing on bad habits. I like to focus on good habits. So, I mean, the first and most important thing is when you think about your sales and the things you're doing, right? Like, so, you know, what are the things that I do to get sales? Maybe I'm calling prospects. Maybe I'm calling old clients for referrals. Maybe I'm doing all these things. Before you examine what you're doing, I want you to examine what you're thinking. And that's a very important habit that most people do not engage in at all. So, how am I thinking about sales? How am I thinking about my product? How am I thinking about my clients? How am I thinking about my ability to really, really thrive and succeed in this role? How am I thinking about it? And when you write it down, again, I'm a huge fan of journaling. You can see how sometimes your thoughts actually make it really hard for you to succeed. And so that's what needs to be addressed first. So the first habit I encourage you to take on is the examination of how you think and how you feel about your role, your job, sales in general. That's habit number one. Habit number two is I would suggest that you look for clues or signs of success, because salespeople sell stuff, but they also have a tendency to want to reinvent the wheel. So look at historically what you've done that worked and see what it took for you to get there, and then replicate that over and over and over again. Create systems.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Absolutely on both of those. Absolutely understanding, you know, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, your approach to everything. I think that's fantastic. I mean, I would say, you know, next time you go to make a call or, you know, prospect or whatever, just before you do it, ask yourself how you're feeling. How am I feeling about this? And if you're feeling complete like fear and trepidation, you go, okay, how can I turn that around? Because I got to do a lot of these.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, one of the things that really helps is when I write a list of, you know, wherever that list is in my CRM or wherever it is, a list of the people that I need to touch today. And I get to cross those names off my list. I just get it done. Like, I remove my emotion from the situation. I just get it done. And so I love just getting it done. I love moving through the list, and I love the numbers of it. I love knowing that I've touched X number of people today or this week. And as you do that regularly, you start to see the results unfold.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I even like the, you know, the language where you say the amount of people I've touched this week, as opposed to like, well, the amount of contacts I've made, or the amount of calls I've made. The amount of people I've touched is that's a different, again, that's changing mindset and thinking. So, Kim, one thing we like to do at the end of these sessions is ask our guest their power tip. So what do you, Kim Ades, do every day to set yourself up for success?
Well, I like to get my mind in the game, and I like to get my body in the game. So I journal every single morning religiously. And I mean, it just gets me in the game. And one of the tricks to journaling is write everything that you're thinking, everything you're feeling, get all the crap out, put it down on paper, and then at the end, I encourage two things: write whatever it is you're grateful for, but also point yourself in the right direction. So, right? So use your journal to say, here's how I want to feel. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's where I'm taking myself today. And so use your journal to take yourself into a new mental state. The second thing I do every single day is I walk 10,000 steps, again, religiously. So, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, but I'm always knocking off that 10,000 steps. So the idea is get your mind and your body into the game before you get your sales game on.
Yeah, no, I love it, Kim. I mean, I'm a big believer in mind body. You can't. It's not one without the other. So Martha, how was the Twitter chat today?
Sorry, I was in the Twitter chat.
Yeah, you're busy with it, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. So very nice comments. Yeah, good opinions. Just one question, but yeah.
A lot of insights. Excellent.
Well.
Listen, thanks again, Kim. Before we go, please do tell people a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I own a coaching company called Frame of Mind Coaching. We coach leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, the highly driven population. We've been doing it for nearly 18 years. We have a process for coaching that is incredibly impactful. So come check us out. Go to frameofmindcoaching.com. And at the same time, we just recently launched a new program that provides coaching for young professionals. So people in their anywhere between the ages of 18 and let's say 35, people who are in their early stages of their career and really trying to figure things out. And if you want to learn more about that, go to thejournalthattalksback.com and you can find affordable, accessible, incredible coaching for young professionals.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think that's, my goodness, it'd be fantastic if we could have had access to things like that when I was younger. But anyway, I probably would have spent the money in the pub instead.
You're not that old.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, listen, thanks again, Kim in Toronto. Thank you, Martha in Vienna, Austria, and myself here in San Diego. Thank you all for joining us today. And for those of you who watch the replay later, thank you for watching it. Please do share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.